Hi, my name is Allyn Kahn, and I've been coaching chess for over 15 years. Today we're going to talk about tactics, and the main thing I want you to see is not only how the tactics are played out in this game that's packed with tactics, but you're also going to see where these tactics arise from. So let's get started. The game I'm about to show you will teach you a lot about tactics, whether you're a beginner or a higher rated player. You get a chance to try out solving these tactical puzzles yourself. Here's a list of the tactics you're going to see in this game. This is pretty typical of a way to open, but now the pawn to d4 brings about what's known as the Scotch game. Black takes the pawn and white takes back. The Scotch game is a standard opening, and Black has several possible replies, but in this game, my opponent playing the black pieces played the unusual move, queen to h4. This used to be popular years ago, but is no longer seen very much in master practice because it violates one of the rules, which is about the queen. Don't bring the queen out too early. The reason you don't want to bring your queen out too early is because it can be attacked, that your opponent gains time by attacking your queen. The move, however, does have a point because it attacks my pawn on e4. I protect the pawn with my knight, and black immediately plays the bishop out, pinning that knight, which is one of our tactics, the pin. So now white does have to do something about this pawn again. Rather than defend it, white plays an attacking move. Now this move, in a sense, violates one of the principles of moving the same piece twice in the opening. The knight has moved 3 times, but the knight does have a threat, and the knight is threatening to take this pawn, and that would be attacking the king and the rook. So now black has to respond to the threat. There's a number of ways to do that. Black just plays the bishop back here, which defends the pawn. And so now it's white to move again. And white plays a bishop to e2, which actually is getting ready to castle, and also indirectly protects that pawn by setting a trap. Can you see what would happen right now if black did take the pawn? See if you can figure out what would happen. Black didn't take the pawn, but what would happen if he did? You can pause the video while you think about the position. The hint is that the black bishop is overworked. It's pinning this knight, which protects the queen, keeps the queen from getting captured, but is also protecting this pawn. So that should tell you what white can now do. Do you see it? Right. The knight takes the pawn, and that forks the king and the rook, and because it's check, black has to respond, but he doesn't dare play bishop takes knight, because then he'd lose his queen. So that wouldn't be very good for black. Therefore, in this position, black plays a much better move, attacking the knight. Now, normally in this position, white brings the knight to d4, but in this position, that's not what I played. Played there. So I decided to play this knight move here, which although it violates a principle that you shouldn't put your knights on the rim. Remember, a knight on the rim is grim. I figured I could get the knight back to c4 at some point, which would gain some time attacking the bishop. He immediately played a pawn move, which not only prevents my knight from coming there, but also contains another threat. So this is another tactic known as the pawn fork. And if, for example, white decided to castle, and white would lose a piece. You might think at this point these tactics are pretty simple, but as you will see, they get more complicated very soon. Alright, so in this position, this is not what I did not play castles. I realized I needed to move that knight again, which is what I did, moving it all the way back to b1. So definitely I have lost some time in the opening. And one of the principles we say, or the guidelines, is don't lose time, don't waste time in the opening. The thing is that Black has also used up a little time by moving the bishop twice, and he's about to take this pawn, which he does on this move. Possibly a better move would have been for Black to just develop this knight, say over here, and that would have been a better idea. But he wants to be consistent and he wants to take the pawn. But now what happens is White castles, and now this queen is attacked. So what does Black do? He moves his queen with the idea of offering White a chance to exchange queens. So if you want to, you could pause the video to figure out what White should do here. This is not exactly a tactic, this is more a move based on long-term strategy. And we see that White plays the best move in this position, which is to move his bishop another time, but into a better position. Plus, the fact is, the bishop now stops the exchange of queens. Black decides to bring this knight out, which makes sense. He doesn't bring it out to this square, f6, because that would allow this rook to come over and check. In fact, it's White's move. White does bring the rook over anyway, now pinning that knight. And it seems reasonable to assume that Black would now castle. In fact, Black did not castle now because that would be a big mistake. Can you see why? So pause the video if you need more time to figure out why castling is a big mistake. Now you might wonder, what is the piece that is overworked? Well, the answer is this knight right here. So can you see what White can do in this position that would win material? If you need a moment, there's the move. Rook takes knight, and now if the knight takes the rook, do you see what can happen? You could pause the video if you need more time to look. The move that White is about to play is called a discovered attack with check. The bishop takes the pawn on h7 check, and the king must either take the bishop or move away. In either case, then White will capture Black's queen. Before, this knight was over here protecting that queen, but now the knight has moved away. In other words, that knight was overworked. So this didn't happen in the game because White wasn't able to play this because Black foresaw the problem and played a different move. He moves their queen away. Now, moving the queen away is not such a great idea in one way because that's moving the queen, let's see, how many times? 1, 2, 3, that's the fourth time the queen is moved. So Black is now losing time. You might say White is gaining time. And in this position, White has a chance to gain even more time by playing this knight into a powerful position in Black's territory. Knight to d5, attacking the queen again. And so, Black decides to move the queen. What else can he do? And now White has a move which I played without any hesitation. Moving this knight out develops that knight and protects the other knight, so it makes a lot of sense to play that move. So in this position, Black should not castle. Black's best move is actually to take this bishop and take the knight. That forces this knight to go back, and so it's not in such a powerful position. So that this would be the position. After this, he could castle safely. Black did not take this knight, which would have been the safest thing to do, but instead castled. So, can you see what White can do now? You can pause the video if you need more time. Otherwise, let's see. Here it is. Not a spectacular move, but it is a developing move. That bishop is now attacking the queen. The bishop is, of course, protected by the knight. And it turns out there's only one move that black can play. There's no safe place for the queen except here. You can check that out yourself by just pausing the video. And so, black plays the queen there. And now, white is ready to launch a winning combination. So you could pause the video to see if you could figure out what it is. Otherwise, we're about to play it. The move is bishop takes pawn checks. In this position, black has only two choices, either to take the bishop or to move the king to h8. If he moves the king to h8, it's not really a very good option because white plays the queen up there and he's already threatening several checkmate moves. In fact, the king did take, and now white plays check, forcing the king back. And now let's see if you can find the next move. In fact, it's a tactic that was used before, except this time it's a knight giving check. And you see that there's only one move black has, and now white wins the queen. So essentially, the game is over, but we'll see what happens in the next few moves. Black attacks the queen. White just moves back to continue the attack on the king. The king is totally exposed. Black tries to bring a knight over to try to help shield the king, but black is really totally lost here. White continues the attack with this threat on the pawn. Threatening knight takes f6 check. There's only one way to defend that, with the bishop. And although this bishop looks powerful, it's attacking this pawn, white has a simple solution. He attacks that bishop again with the pawn. Black has to go back. And now this is really very close to the end of the game. There's one last tactic to look at. The tactic we're going to talk about is called removing the guard. The bishop is guarding that pawn. So what do? Just take it off. And now after it's taken back, knight checks. Black has only one move with a king, and the game is over because of checkmate. Okay. So you see that we got to see all these different tactics. So what you need to take from all this is to learn your tactics well, because these can be used in lots of games, even your own games that you're playing, either casual games or tournament games. The other thing you should take away from all this is the importance of learning checkmate patterns. After castling, white actually was able to foresee all the tactics that occurred in the next 4 or 5 moves. First, getting the bishop out, which is developing the bishop and causing the queen to come to the only square that he could make it to, and then playing the bishop to check, attracting the king to the h7. White now plays his queen out here to h5. Black has no choice but to move back there. And now everything is in place for this discovered attack, winning the queen. So, hope you enjoyed this game. For more videos, go to my YouTube channel. That's Chess Coach 8. And also check out the Mentagy puzzle, which I developed to help my chess students. You can learn more about that at www.mentagy.com. Mentagy. And I welcome your questions and comments.